Hey, it's JK. So far, we've tested out shields, fists and whips in Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 3, but of course, we must complete the trilogy with Dark Souls 2. You know how this goes by now. For the first cycle we will only use shields, for the New Game Plus cycle we will only use fist weapons, and for the final cycle we will only use whips. I'll be starting each cycle with just a basic weapon from that class, and I'll be restricting my upgrade materials for New Game Plus and New Game Plus Plus because starting the cycle with a max upgraded weapon is way too easy. We gotta have some challenge in here. In the previous 2 games we did this, the shields and fist weapons ended up being kinda good, and then the whips were just awful. Will Dark Souls 2 follow suit? Well, there's only one way to find out. Also, it should go without saying, but runs like these take a huge amount of time to complete, so if you do want to see more and help the channel, I hope you'll consider subscribing. We're very close right now to 200,000 subscribers, and I've got some crazy stuff planned for that which you won't want to miss. So, don't shield your eyes, especially if this is the fist video of mine that you're watching, and prepare to be whipped into shape. First, we name our character Baderp 2. As always, we make a beautiful specimen. Let me know in the comments what you'd do if you woke up at night and saw this guy standing in your garden. Kinda crazy, but only the warrior class starts with a shield in Dark Souls 2, so we choose him and human effigy as a gift. The iron palmer is our starting shield, but let me assure you, that won't be the case for very long. Anyway, we head into Majula. If you know me, you know that I'm first heading to Fade's Tower of Lame, where we quickly introduce Winona Ryder to the Upside Down. I then head to the Forest of Fallen Giants, where I finally test out the damage of this shield. It's pretty bad. I then go to Melentia and buy the Fragrant Branch of Yore and also Lenegrast's Key. We need some more souls now, but luckily shields let us farm pretty efficiently in hides by getting these enemies to fall off here. With enough souls gained, I went and bought the Silver Cat Ring in order to drop down the Majula pit, only to find that even with the cat ring, I can't survive this fall. I should have spent that time grinding for souls to level my health, but let's be real, grinding just sucks. Especially when you're doing challenge runs and you have to farm for one specific item or weapon. That's where this video's sponsor, Wand, comes in. Wand is a desktop app for single-player PC games that helps you with guides, maps, and even lets you customize them with mods. There are 2 problems I run into all the time as a Souls challenge runner: horrendous grinding for souls or items, and wanting to do a run with a weapon or item that's locked away in the late game. Wand is a desktop tool that lets you skip all that and get straight to the fun with just a few clicks. Unlike a lot of game tools that feel like you need a computing degree to figure them out, Wand is actually super user-friendly. Just launch your game through Wand, hit Alt-W to open the overlay, and edit in what you need with ease. Want to try Dark Souls 2 with immolation only right from the start? You got it, get burning. Want Vanquish's Seal, but don't want to farm 50 ore stones? Wand's got you covered, go get punching. But Wand doesn't just do modding, it also includes some very in-depth maps and guides. The map included for Elden Ring is absolutely insane, showing the location of every item, enemy, boss, weapon, and magic spell you could ever want. This is way better than any map I've ever found from Googling. So get Wand for free using my link wand.ggJKleads, or click the link in the description and enjoy the freedom to do the challenge runs you actually want to do. Well, time to farm more souls. Okay, the game is just trolling me now. After a little farming, we get up to 11 vigor, and now we can survive the fall. On the way down, I grab the Ring of the Evil Eye +1, which I will actually use for something in this run. We make it down to the gutter, and then run through to get the central gutter bonfire. After a lot of wandering around lost and confused, I finally get our prize, the Wicked Eye Great Shield. So, is this the best Great Shield we could get right now? Well, no, actually, but there's 2 reasons to use it. 1, it looks really cool. Secondly, killing enemies while wielding this shield restores some health, which stacks with the Ring of the Evil Eye. I now upgrade our shield to +3, and then kill Morlin for his Seldorable armor set, increasing our soul gain further. We now run on through hides and take out Ian. This was pretty slow, but he does drop the Watch Dragon Palmer shield, giving us more item discovery, which could be useful later on. Finally, let's actually kill a boss with a shield. Foe Ornstein is up here. While the damage isn't amazing and the attack speed is super slow, we can actually stun him with 4 hits, which is pretty useful. This gives us an opening and knocks him out of any attack he tries to do. Towards the end, I think he gave up as he just stood in the corner while I bashed him to death. That was a brutal beating. Shield your eyes, children! Beyond him, we can grab a better shield, the Tower Shield. Back at Firelink Shrine, I level up Strength to 31 and put some points into Vigor, Endurance and Vitality also. I then speak to Kale and get the Mansion Key, where we can grab 3 Titanite shards from this chest. I then get all the goodies from this basement area of Forest of Fallen Giants, including the Chloranthy Ring and the Titanite Slab. With all the supplies grabbed, we can upgrade the Tower Shield to +4. But we're not done yet. Now, I get Lycia to open the way to Huntsman's Copse. The giant basilisk at the bottom of this pit always drops 3 large Titanite shards, so killing him a couple of times is enough to get our shield to +6. With that sorted, I now man to No Head's Wharf and call the boat in. Flex our sentry at this point took quite a bit of damage from our shield and just didn't really stand a chance against us, especially when 3 hits stagger him. In short order, we make like Fuperman and defeat Flex Fluther. His defeat lets us enter the Lost Bastille. After a quick trip to get some more level ups, I pushed the barrel to open the way to Macduff. I grabbed all the chest rewards surrounding him, but then realised I needed to enter the Bastille from the other route. So let's head back and do the last giant. The damage with our shield is pretty big at this point, and despite him stomping on me near the end, we blast through this pretty quickly. Back in the Hunter's Dream, I get up to 37 strength and then return to do the Pursuer. Given our shield does strike damage, which the Pursuer is weak to, the numbers are pretty solid. We can also block pretty much all the Pursuer's sword swings and even stagger him. Range is terrible, but given we can block the damage, staying close is a very viable solution. This fight is over shortly and could be described as a trivial pursuit. With that, we now drop into the other entrance to the Lost Bastille and grab the Duff Ember to give to Macdull. I now go back to the round table to level up strength some more. Near the start of the Bastille, there's another Pursuer which drops a Twinkling Titanite, and another in this courtyard that gives us another Twinkling. I also lit this torch to get Macdull to move, so I can get a 3rd Twinkling from the chest he's sitting on. I then went and leveled up Strength and Vitality some more. Back in Huntsman's Copse, Rowena's Scythe is completely ineffective against our shield. I also went and took out the Crystal Lizard nearby for a Titanite chunk. It's now onto the Skeleton Lords, and our shields do some great damage. Easily enough to take out the Lords in just 2 or 3 hits, and then also enough to wipe out the Skeletons in a single hit each. Once they saw my damage, I could tell these guys were more worried than they skeleton. Soon enough, this boss is down. In Harvest Valley, I buy all of Cloanne's stock to get her to give me another Twinkling Titanite. Up ahead is the whole reason I came this way, this Poison Stone. I went to Macdull and used this stone to infuse the Tower Shield with poison. My plan was to kill the giants under the Black Gulch by poisoning them, but it didn't work so well. I hit this giant an enormous number of times, and for whatever reason, he never got poisoned. In the end, I undid the infusion and just beat the giants to death normally. Probably should have just done that to begin with. What a giant waste of time. With the Forgotten Key in hand, I can now get through this door in the gutter, letting us get one of the best shields in the game, Havel's Great Shield, the highest damaging shield we can possibly get. I grab some more Twinkling Titanite nearby, as we're gonna need it. Look at this. Havel's Great Shield unupgraded is already stronger than our +6 Tower Shield. That's kinda wild. I now upgrade it to +2 and go to test it on the Ruined Sentinels. Holy shit, that's a lot of damage. 2 hits also staggers them. I was able to take out the second just as the third got involved. I unfortunately did get knocked off the ledge by the third, but it wasn't enough to ruin my victory. There's another Pursuer ahead who drops another Twinkling Titanite to bring our shield to +3. I also got strength to 50 and boosted vigor, endurance and vitality. I think it's finally time for a Great Soul boss. The Rotten is pretty slow, so tanking his attacks with our shield is a very viable strategy. Even his dark AoE can be blocked while only taking a minor amount of damage. This was a very easy fight, and soon enough, he's done. Gone, but not for Rotten. After another cheeky stat level up, I head back down to the pit and use the Forgotten Key to go grab the Dragon Talon. That's right, we're heading to the Sunken Crown DLC right now. The reason? Even more Twinkling Titanite, of course. This DLC actually has quite a lot of it, and we don't even need to kill any bosses to get it. I grabbed the Dragonstone up ahead, and then made my way to the area before Ilana. This area actually has a total of 6 more Twinkling Titanite we can grab. This is more than enough to upgrade our shield to maximum. As our weapon is maxed and we're here anyway, why not try and take on Ilana right now? Our damage is pretty good, even though the attack of course takes 3 working days to execute. The biggest challenge here is taking out the summons. The heavy attack can one-shot the skeletons provided they're not blocking with their own shields. I kinda have to hope she doesn't summon Velstad, as finding a window to attack and not get hit by either of them will be tough. It also doesn't help when she has pursuers active while she summons the skeletons. This slowed down the process of taking them out, and by the time we did, she summoned again almost immediately. I finally got us back into a good position with the skeletons downed at a relatively brisk pace. As she summoned pursuers again, I went all in, landing 3 whole attacks in a row to end this low quality fight. I now went and stuck more points in Vigor, Endurance and Vitality before entering the arena of Sin the Slumbering Dragon. Slow attacks and Sin flying a lot is a bad combination, but I had a simple strat. Just keep walking towards his back legs. Often just walking through avoids the claw swipe without even needing to dodge. You do need to be careful as late in the fight he does kinda get wise to this strategy and starts to breathe fire backwards to get you, but as long as you're aware of it, you can run away in time. After much less time than many of the runs I've done, this dragon is defeated. I never imagined we'd be breeze Sin through the DLC so easily. After yet more leveling up, I returned to the DLC to grab the Eternal Sanctum key and go to take on the ever-annoying Gank Squad. I wish I could say this was different from the usual run away, get one hit and keep running away strat, but come on, you know what this fight's about by this point. We can easily block Serra's rapier attacks to stun him and then get a hit in which at least deals with that annoyance. For the other two, I once again had that thing happen where Varg does a plunging attack and it actually damages afflicted grave robber, which helped to speed things up. This just left me and my fellow Great Shield enthusiast. We did some great damage to him, and before long we take him down, no disputes, no arguments. Endurance is having diminishing returns now, so I just level Vigor and Vitality. Let's clear off a few optional base game bosses now. First, I destroy the wallets of these gargoyles by introducing them to Bell Freemium Games. Next, I crush another pursuer for a Twinkling Titanite and head down to fight the Pillow of Chaos, i.e. the Lost Sinner. The damage, particularly if we land a counter hit, is pretty beautiful. Towards the end, I just kept spamming the heavy attack, and shortly after, she lost both the battle and the war. Vigor and Vitality now reach 36, and I make my way towards the Shaded Woods. We are actually going to the Shrine of Winter right away, because guess what? We've reached 1 million soul memory. So we can get through here early and reach Dranglake Castle. I crush the enemies outside the castle to gain entry, and then grab the Frozen Flower for DLC access later. This nameless usurper whose identity I couldn't figure out, then invaded, but her tiny dagger couldn't touch me through my shield. The Twin Dragon Riders are up next, and given their weakness to strike damage, we were ripping big chunks off their health bars with every swing. I did get caught by some of their nonsense, but in short order, I turned these Dragon Riders into Ghost Riders. I then got the key to the King's Passage, and up ahead, fought my way through to Looking Glass Knight. He is also weak to strike damage, so the numbers were nice, providing I didn't bounce off his own shield, of course. One crazy thing that did happen was he went to summon, but I staggered him with my hits, cancelling the summon entirely. I didn't even know that was possible. This actually kept the fight as a one-on-one encounter for the entire time. He did try to summon again at the end, but I killed him before he could pull it off. I'll be honest, I was kinda looking past this night. Because, of course, it's Shrine of Amana time. With our obligatory level up completed, I start working my way through. At least we can block almost all of the damage from these projectiles. Even these archdrakes at the end of this section didn't pose too much of a problem this time. I then killed this NPC after kinda luring him into this small room for a beating. Everyone's favourite frog is up next. Demon of Song can actually break through my shield with her charge, which is pretty dumb. But outside of that peculiarity, this was a normal Demon of Song fight. Sometimes I had just enough time to get 2 swings in, which helped this go a bit faster. It's a shame I didn't do this hitless, then I could have called myself Song Bao. After using the souls, it was finally time to head towards what I've been waiting for, this Imperious Knight. These guys have 2 shields that can be power stanced, which they have a chance of dropping. After killing him quite a few times, he finally drops one of them, Reeve's Great Shield. The other shield took a lot of farming to get, but at last this guy drops Orma's Great Shield as well. So these shields require a lot of Twinkling Titanite to upgrade to max. Luckily, there is some more lying around we can grab. Twinkling Titanite can, however, also be obtained from these guys in Shrine of Amana. I had to farm them quite a bit, but eventually we have a total of 30. This lets us max upgrade both shields. By holding one in each hand, we can power stance them, doing a combo attack similar to the giant door shield from Dark Souls 3. With our endgame weapons acquired, let's clear up the optional stuff we've missed. The chariot boss did kick me square in the face, but despite this we executed it shortly after. Covetous Demon is super cute, and I didn't kill it whatsoever. Okay, look, please don't tell Babs, she's still super angry with me for killing the hippo in the Elden Ring video. This is a mandatory boss, what am I supposed to do? I went and hit the Baneful Queen so hard, it mythed her face up, then I shattered Sharon, deleted Dentist, and smashed the Smelter Demon. Seriously, this was one of the quickest Smelter Demon fights I've ever had. He didn't even get to finish his sword buff animation before I killed him. He went from Smelter Demon to Smited Demon. As if we needed it, we can upgrade our build even further by killing this Pursuer for the Ring of Blades +1. Old Iron King took longer than the last couple bosses due to me stupidly getting caught by some of his attacks near the start. But once we actually managed to punish one of his fist slams, the damage was pretty substantial. A few more hits and he turns into Old Dian King. I then vanquished this vanguard of vermin, scarred the Scorpioness for screwing with me in the one-shot contest, rubbed out the Royal Rat and his Rattalion of reprobates, mashed the Magist and crushed the Congregation, and lastly disfigured dear Freya with our deadly doors. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? Back to Undead Crypt now, where we get the shortcut unlocked, and it's onto Velstad. This was the longest fight in a while, and it's mainly due to 2 factors. One of them is hitting Velstad's legs with both shields seems to be tricky, and the second is the crazy defense buff he gets for that second phase. Our damage really felt a lot less as a result. I actually took some hits, but did manage to block some of them. Finally, I eliminate this boss after a hard-fought battle. After grabbing the Ring's King, we now make our way into Keep's Aldia. After carefully avoiding Babs' angry hippo friends who tried to get revenge for their Elden Ring brother, it was time for Ian the Guard Dragon. Ian decided to be a dick and fly a whole bunch of times, which really rustles my jimmies. FromSoft needs to stop with these bosses that you can't hit 50% of the time, honestly. At least our damage was good. Guard this, idiot. We now head into Dragon Eyrie, where we quickly crush the Drakekeeper Knights up ahead. Even the Dragon Champion went down in surprisingly few hits. Okay, he did nearly kill me, but let's just ignore that. You know, I said I'd stop doing Ancient Dragon in these runs, but some part of me just couldn't resist trying to clip his toenails with our doors. Maybe next cycle I'll leave him out. I then went into the memories to grab the souls of giants, including crushing the Giant Lord on the way for his troubles. His ankles have got to be hurting a lot after that. I also went and took out Vendrick, which was about as uninteresting as usual. I cooked him so bad, we should change his name to Ovendrick. With that sorted, I went and got the Iron Keep from Iron Key, and then got assaulted by salamanders as I struggled to grab the heavy Iron Keep. Now, we can enter the Iron King DLC. But I should probably spend that near 1 million souls we've got on us. So I went and bought a whole bunch of stuff from Cloanne, and then put loads of points into Endurance and Vitality. I then returned to the Iron King DLC, snuck through this room, and then powered my way through this usually painful area. Even the big guy didn't stand a chance. Quicksword Rachel got quickly crushed, and then I headed down the tower to get the tower key. Time for our first boss at last, the Cool Ranch Smelter Demon. At least I think that's what it is, we don't have that here in the UK. Despite our pretty tanky setup, he still does huge damage to us with his magic buffed sword. Luckily, our damage is pretty solid too, and we do have the ability to stagger him with enough hits. But it still came pretty close at points, thank God for life gems. After a few more door slams, he dies from a smell terminal illness. Well, straight away onto Fume Knight now. This was actually pretty easy compared to Blue Smelter. we could block many of his attacks in the first phase with our shields without really taking any damage, and because he gets really angry whenever I use Estus, he didn't actually go into phase 2 when he got below half health. I wasn't even trying to bait that this time, it just happened to coincide with when I was healing. He did start the transition right near the end, but 2 more door slams ends his reign of terror. Before the last boss of the DLC, I headed up and took out the Predator cosplayers on the way. Sir Alon sits waiting for us in his room. Although we can block his attacks with our shield, the bleed bar still continues to build with every hit, and some of his swings do huge damage to our stamina. He's also one of the hardest bosses to find a consistent heal window for, especially because of the fact we haven't leveled up ADP at all. Also, he has a kick attack. I've never seen that before. The damage with the Bright Bug is pretty nice. Although I did get a bit greedy near the end, I managed to finish him off with a counter hit, causing him to fall on the floor. Okay, last DLC of the cycle, let's enter into this snowy hellscape. After stifling Lemon's attempt to cosplay as a Hammer Bro from Super Mario, I decided to have a go at the first boss, Ava. I got some great RNG to start here when she did the projectiles, letting me get behind her and land 3 strong hits. Being able to block the claw swipes did help a lot, although the jumping attacks still hurt me. But this was a fine Ava fight, and before long, we close our doors right on her head to finish her. I then clear out all the ice around the level, go and make Hexa Nikolai die, and then get the Garrison Ward key. Yeah, best just to get this out of the way now. This is gonna suck, isn't it? I mean, at least we can block their annoying charge for once. God, I hate that attack. After a bit of turmoil, we make it to the Twin Kitties. The damage was good, but my big worry was our attacks being too slow to finish off Lud before Zalin got involved. I was so worried about this that when Zalin joined, I panic attacked Lud, taking his AoE in the process. Luckily, I was able to land a further hit to Lud's head to kill him, while Zalin conveniently charged his projectiles. Back to a one-on-one fight, this was just an easier version of Ava, and we Zalen'd him soon after. Okay, let's go get those knights. First, we cast Donna away, then free all of the knights around the area. Let's get the Ivory King sorted. The damage we do to the Chardlois knights is pretty awesome, so much so in fact I had to make sure we didn't kill them too quickly. Last thing we want is one of these guys running around while we're trying to fight the Ivory King. After all the portals are closed, I pop a Bright Bug in preparation for the King's arrival. My main strategy was to try and finish him off before he buffed his sword. Thanks to our knight also hitting him, we got a clutch stagger that let me land a whole load of hits, and then, as he jumped back to buff his sword, we ran in and finished him off. The fight with him was only about 90 seconds, I wasn't expecting him to die very quickly, but here we are. Of course, we're not done with this cycle just yet, we gotta head into these dirty chasms first. Here, I show a second Havel impersonator who the King of Shields is, and then crush every enemy on the way until we at last reach the Dark Lurker. Given that he counts as an apparition type enemy, meaning physical damage is halved against him, the damage we did was the lowest of any boss so far. That being said, we can still stagger him with relative ease. Also, when he splits, we can hit both of them at once, which puts us in a position where he was at about 20% health remaining. When they both went for their beam swords, I just went in for the attack and mashed them up until they looked like a Jackson Pollock painting. Okay, let's get this cycle finished, just the final boss gauntlet remaining. First up is the Throne Duo. Luckily they are pretty weak to strike damage, so we do a lot per hit, especially to the Watcher. She goes down, and then the Defender falls shortly after. With them dead, Nashandra now takes thronership of this room. I realized at this point that I am very stupid and could have gotten the crowns restored so that wearing one negated her hollowing effect. Oh well, it's not like this was too difficult anyway. Aldia the Moonlight Butterfly now blocks the way, but like, I've really been considering just not doing Aldia going forward. Much like Ancient Dragon and Vendrick, the strategy is literally the exact same every time regardless of build, and it's just quite a slow and uninteresting fight, despite, yes, I know, the cool lore behind him. In any case, a few shield smashes later, and we give Aldia a case of scolariosis that leads to his demise. I now seal myself away in the Throne Tomb to prepare for the next cycle. Before we move on, I now go do a quick respec and move all the points into Vitality into ADP instead. With that, it's now time to use the Medulla Bonfire to move to the next cycle. Our first stop is the Forest of Fallen Giants. Melentia handily sells our first weapon, the Case Deuce, of which I'm going to buy 2. I grab some Titanite shards from the Medulla Mansion, and then buy some more from Leningrass to get my Case Deuce to +3. We are in fact going to be power stancing them. I want to note here that I am not going to be using any claw weapons this cycle, only actual fists. Speaking of which, the fist boss of this cycle is the Last Giant. With a few punches, we handily defeat him in under a minute. In a similar vein, the Pursuer was also not much of an issue. As we know, he's weak to strike, so a good barrage of punches is more than enough to disperse his life force. I grab the Duff Ember once again, and then buy loads of large Titanite from McDull to get both Case Deuce up to +6. Time to go bop these Ruined Sentinels, and that damage is looking mighty fine indeed. I was actually determined to kill them this cycle without ever leaving the starting platform. Did get a little dicey when the 2 of them were up here, but with some careful positioning, I got the fight down to just 1-on-1 and punched away until I left her body strewn across the platform. I'm not even sure why I decided to do the Belfry Gargoyles now, but here we are. Good to get them out of the way, I suppose. Our punches don't kill them as quickly as I'd like, but I suppose this is New Game Plus. We punch the Belfry bunch until they die. It's Medulla Pit time now, my favourite. We make our way into the gutter, get spat at by some Aggie statues, and light the bonfire. Exploding mummies down here actually can drop rotten pine resin, which is exactly what I need. Using this, I'm going to try again to poison these giants below the Black Gulch. Hopefully it goes a lot better this time. Their attacks do hurt a lot, but I was able to actually poison them this time, which even in New Game Plus does a good chunk of damage. Soon enough, they dead, and we got the Forgotten Key. I then punched Gully in the face, and then got into a boxing match with the Rotten. The damage was pretty low, but at least we can dodge in and out of his attacks with relative ease. The good thing about this boss though, is wherever you hit, there's a good chance you're punching someone in the face, given the cadavers sticking out. Soon enough, we punch him down and trot on past to our next destination. I now went and grabbed the Dragon Talon, punched the hand monsters for some Titanite chunks, as well as grabbed these New Game Plus exclusive ones from below Forest of Fallen Giants. I of course got the slab here as well, and upgraded one of the Case Deuce to +10 and the other to +9. With that, let's enter the Sunken Crown DLC early once again. There's actually a Titanite slab that we can grab here right away, but the real prize is Flynn's Ring. The lower our vitality stat, the higher the damage boost we get, which is great for this build. I quickly go and box Boldir in his bald ears, and then upgrade our other Case Deuce to +10. Well, let's get this annoying as hell boss out of the way. Gank Squad was a lot longer this go round, which probably isn't really surprising. The damage per hit is okay, but the fact we can only get so few hits in at a time is quite annoying. Sarah goes down first again, quite quickly at least. Taking out the Grave Robber took a while longer as trying to avoid being ganked by the 2 of them proved trickier. It was the usual running and dropping strategy until finally he went down too. Weirdly, Varg was easier this time. He actually let me backstab him a few times, and I was able to stop him from healing by just staying on top of him. Arguably easier than last cycle, although it took longer. Comparatively, Alana was a positively brisk fight. I could actually kill the skeletons with a single power stance punch combo. The downside? Her damage is devastating, even with my rather large health bar. One thing that did impede my progress was that she summoned the Pursuer orbs around her right before she summoned the skeletons, again, meaning I couldn't take them out as quick as I would have liked. What was even worse is after surviving that onslaught, the exact same thing happened again. Am I stuck in a deja vu loop or something? I'm not exactly sure how I managed to survive all that anyway, but after a lot of close calls, I smacked her a few more times to secure the win. But this was just the qualifying round before the main event. Yep, it's Sin. Now, for the most part, this fight wasn't too different than usual. Sin flies away a bunch, I punch him in the legs, he does a ton of damage to me, blah 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 blah. Standard Sin experience, right? But there was one thing I overlooked completely. My fist weapon actually broke on Sin's corrosive hide. Luckily, I had exactly 1 repair powder on me. If I hadn't had this, I would have been in big trouble and probably had to restart the fight. This was essential for me crossing the finish line. The DLC is complete. Back in the base game, I batter these bloated boys in their balls and then get immediately sidetracked by going down the Lost Bastille. I remembered the red phantom mummy in the water this time though. I opted to actually get the torches on either side lit this time, and then went in to punch up the sinner. As it's New Game Plus, the biggest issue is not the sinner itself, it's the damn pyromancers who join the fight partway through. I thought they'd be more of a ball ache to kill, so instead I just focused on the sinner, only to find that after I killed the sinner, the pyromancers died in just 3 hits. Guess they're too busy flirting with pastry to level vigor. Okay, now back to the Shaded Woods where I grab these 3 twinkling titanite and punch a giant scorpion lady in the side a whole bunch of times. I could tell you more about this fight, but it wouldn't be a very interesting tale. I enter Doors of Pharos and give Guthrie an early grave. Would you believe the Royal Rat Authority was actually more difficult than all of the Sunken Crown DLC bosses put together? I'm not just talking about the stupid little toxic rats, but actually hitting the big guy in the legs with the fists was a real ordeal. Stupid, awkwardly shaped boss. How did they decide this would be good? Also, how did the rats determine that this boss was the authority? Did they take a democratic vote? I actually wanted to go to the Shrine of Winter now, but guess what? I don't have a high enough soul memory to get in. For those unaware, in New Game Plus, you now need to earn 2 million souls from when you start the cycle to be able to enter. A bit of a developer oversight is that the game doesn't keep track of what your soul memory was when you finish each cycle, so unless you look at it as soon as you start the cycle and take note of it, you're out of luck. The only logical conclusion I can draw from this is that Dark Souls 2 has objectively worse hitboxes than the other Souls games. Well, best get some more souls. Freya pops up to say hi, and we greet her with some punches to the face. You might find this surprising, but I was a little worried about the congregation. Not because of the clerics or even the magus, they were no trouble. It was more these crawling guys who I thought I wouldn't even be able to hit. Turns out my fears were unfounded though, as my fists congregated inside their skulls. There's a new red phantom enemy here, but I quickly smack him up and make my way into Freya. Freya has less health because of the smacks we gave her earlier, and she's also fairly weak to strike damage. We just put our jukes up and punch her repeatedly until she dies. So guess what? That's still not enough soul memory to enter the Shrine of Winter. But then I realized I am actually an idiot. I have a huge amount of poppable souls on me from the last cycle. So I popped all of the souls I had on me. With all of that done, I was still not able to enter the Shrine of Winter. The fact I still couldn't enter confirmed to me that Dark Souls 2 is actually more linear than Dark Souls 3 with a duller color palette. Well, let's go clear up some more optional bosses, I guess. I completely forgot that there's now a red phantom here in Hades, but luckily I was able to punch Ian down before he caught up with me. We then go into the Old Dragon Slayer and leave him Old Dragon laying in a crumpled heap after a barrage of punches. Dragon Rider actually did put up a bit of a fight this time, as I decided not to cheese him, but after a few more punches, the Dragon died. Flexile Sentry was... I'm gonna be honest, I forgot that the ninja guys also appear in this fight in New Game Plus, but luckily they went down pretty quick. Flexile Sentry itself was pretty easy, until he caught me with his grab attack, which actually came very close to taking me out. Luckily, I survived and punched the boss in the stomach enough to give them dysentery. Despite having killed these bosses and got more souls, I once again realized Dark Souls 2 was... oh, it actually opened. The fact this finally worked caused me to understand at last that Dark Souls 2 has worse ganks in areas than the other games. Once in Drang Lake, I buy up as many repair powders as I can afford and then dash through grabbing the frozen flower. As you might have guessed, my plan has been to rush into the Ivory King DLC. I grabbed the Eye of the Priestess to open up the Ava fight and then got chased out here by a barrel. I didn't actually fancy fighting Orheim myself, so instead I summoned Masterless Glencore and stood back while they fought to the death for my entertainment. Despite it being a very close fight, Glencore died in the end, but it opened up a nice window for me to heroically sucker punch Orheim for the win. With that nonsense handled, we can take on Ava. As was to be expected, our damage was a lot lower than against every other boss we've fought so far. But there's another problem. The tiger bosses in the DLC seem to have this aura which makes weapon durability degrade faster. Despite knowing this in advance, and buying repair powder beforehand for this exact reason, I stupidly did not remember to equip it before the fight, meaning I had to frantically menu to use it. Somehow, I did not die during this interaction, and after a couple more punches, we excommunicate this boss. With the ice now cleared from the area, I run and light up all these braziers to allow us to get our prize, the Bone Fist, a weapon I surprisingly have never used. Using a soul vessel, I respec to allow me to power stance it. So I don't normally do this, but I grabbed the Bone Fist from the last cycle as well, so I can dual wield them. I upgraded both of them to +5. The moveset of this weapon is tremendous. As well as martial arts kicks, we can also do a Hadouken. I'm excited to use it. Back in the Ivory King DLC, I beat the hell out of some little hedgehogs and then head down to this god-awful area. Despite the reindeers being even more aggressive this time, I just about made it through. I decided to use a bright bug for this fight, as I think we'll struggle to kill Lud before Zalin joins in again. Damage was actually pretty solid, especially the kick move during the R1 combo. The downside? The range is terrible at points, maybe worse than the dual Castus. But with a bit of luck and some careful dodging, I was able to bring Lud down without too much interference from Zalin. Zalin comparatively took forever to kill. The Bone Fist attacks just couldn't really outpace the health regen. Towards the end, I switched over to using the Hadouken, which did a nice bit of damage and felt more effective range-wise. One final one sent this tiger off to hell, or as I like to call it, Lords of the Zalin. Back up top, I cast away this witch, pounded this lemon into lemonade, and freed all the knights. Time to finish off this DLC with the Ivory King. The great thing about the Bone Fist for this fight is that every other attack staggers these knights. Taking them out one-on-one is kinda trivialized by this, but getting ganked is still a very real worry. With the help of my trusty knight friends, we eventually took them all out, and I popped a bright bug before the king's arrival. We were able to take off some good chunks of his health at the start with a full-on barrage, even though he did hit me in return. The true clutch moment came when he started buffing his sword, which allowed me to land an incredible number of hits upon him, nearly depleting all of his health. I took the hit from his AoE, but it was worth it. He then took the time to finish off our knight friend while I healed up and then ran in to land the finishing blows, knocking him down from his ivory tower. With the Ivory King DLC conquered, let's go back and make some base game progression, starting with Huntsman's Copse. I punched out the Boruto fan at the end of this bridge and went to take out the chariot. I very nearly died here after killing both necromancers thanks to the chariot catching me. I barely managed to escape the skeletons to run and heal, but with them all dead, I quickly blasted the chariot itself. I was particularly annoyed as I heard that he'd been talking about me behind my back. Turns out he's quite two-faced. Beating up the skeleton lords with the Bone Fist just feels like the right thing to do. This boss turned out to be more enjoyable than usual. In a move that might get me a divorce, I then went and fought the covetous demon with the Bone Fist. I'm just petting him, Babs, I promise. Up ahead, I finally got to use the running jump kick attack to boot this guy off the edge. That felt good. Mitha was up now, and the damage was looking pretty good. Given apparently she is resistant to strike, the numbers were very respectable. Once we got a stagger, I demolished a lot of her health, and despite her tail whipping me, I finished her off. Hey, if Covetous Demon ended up marrying her, would he be her promised consort? Before proceeding, I went to the Grave of Saints to help the back of Roy's head explore this wall, and then went to take out the Royal Van Rat Guard. Thankfully, hitting them was no issue despite them being small, and we take them out briskly. Returning to Iron Keep, I was determined to kick the NPC invaders into the lava, and while I did succeed, I also took a dip in with her. I tried the same with Dennis, but he was less amenable, so I just punched him to death. Smelter Demon is weaker to strike as we already know, so punches and kicks did well against him. He did manage to smelt my health bar at some point, but I quickly smelted his in return. After some more fun drop kicking a red phantom NPC off a ledge, I went on to fight the old Iron King, who was his usual self. It seems the old Iron King was no match for my Iron Fist. As he's the last Old One boss we did this cycle, we get greeted by the rarely seen medium-sized Audia. I think I prefer tiny Audia, to be honest. Before anything else, let's get these dark chasms out of the way. Surprisingly, the Bone Fist easily staggers the Havel cosplayer, and if you think I didn't take the time to kick one of these guys down a pit, well, hey, maybe you haven't been paying attention. Dark Lurker was actually the first boss in a while who killed me. More than once, actually. Okay, that one was totally my fault for trying the jump kick there. I eventually decided to use a charcoal pine resin and a bright bug to help speed this along. The first phase obviously isn't really a problem, but but the second phase gets so hectic, especially with their very high damage. I probably could have put on more magic resistant armor, but fashion was way too important. After a lot of running, I was able to take out the Dark Lurker despite getting fireballed at the end, which did lurk me a little bit. Well, straight away onto another duo boss, Double Dragon Rider. This was certainly one of the boss fights of all time. If these two got married, would one of them be the bride? I take out the mannequin and the pelican to open the way forward, and then punch out this red phantom weeb to enter the King's Passage. Looking Glass Knight was a significantly faster fight than last cycle. Despite the knight taking half the normal damage when he summons the NPC in, we still took off a massive amount of his health bar while he was in the animation. After he finished, one more punch and kick combo allows us to glassassinate him. The Shrine of the Secret of Mana had many fun surprises in store for us this time, such as Mildred the Butcher's ancestor, and the peculiar Kinder Egg who causes us a few issues. Demon of Song tried to show me that Froggy style was the superior fighting discipline, but a few hits from our fist caused her to croak in short succession. Was Velstad a bit more of a challenge? Well, yeah, actually. He hits hard, which should come as no surprise. One downside I'm finding with the Bone Fist is if you press the attack button one too many times, you get locked into the animation and can end up getting caught, so that's something I need to be cognizant of. We still push our way through though, and keep on punching until his bell is rung. After grabbing the Ring's King again, I decided to smack up Vendrick right now. It actually took quite a few punches to even start this fight. But other than that, we just stand behind his thigh and hit him until he goes from Vendrick to Endrick. Audia's Keep is of course the next destination, where we break this mirror. Guess that's 7 years of bad luck. It's funny because bad luck is in fact what we got when Ian decided to relentlessly fly away and not let me hit him for long periods of time. Why did they design the DS2 dragon bosses like this? Dragon is the right word for them because that's what these boss fights do. At least the Dragon Knight ahead will stand and face me in an honourable duel. So it's Ancient Dragon time and... No, you know what? No, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. It's a boring as hell fight where I do the same thing every single time and it wastes my life every time I do it. I don't care if it means the run isn't all bosses. I'm done. I'm walking away. I don't care. I'm going. Ah, damn it. Die, stupid dragon toes! On the way to the memories, we get invaded by Forlorn's New Game Plus sister, Fivelorn, and then go break the ankles of the Giant Lord. Another giant waste of time. Given that I never normally do it, I decided at this point to actually go get the Ring of Blades plus 2 by doing the dual pursuers. Obviously, I fought both of them at the same time, definitely didn't do the cheese that causes one of them to despawn. Anyway, we got the ring, yay! This time, I'm doing Throne Watcher and Throne Defender now. With the Bright Bug activated, Throne Watcher gets brought down pretty quickly. I actually couldn't get enough hits in to kill Defender before he started healing the Watcher, but somehow still finished him off before he revived his buddy. Nashanda then came in, but I went hard into her back with some precise hits, and despite getting cursed, this was also a pretty easy fight. Lastly, we had Audia. The damage from our attacks was pretty low, and this took a while. I nearly died of old age by the time this was over. At least we can walk away from this room afterwards. Wish I could walk away from Drang Lake, but we've got a lot more to do. Let's head to the Old Iron King DLC. I punch down the Iron Warrior, show Rachel my fists are quicker than her sword, and go for the Blueberry Burst Smelter Demon. I'm pretty much going to use Bright Bugs for all of these bosses from now on. This was surprisingly easy. It was, well, kind of the same as the normal Smelter Demon, but with more health. Our DPS was solid though, and we smell terminate him soon after. We make our way down, actually taking out the Iron Warrior on the way, and prepare for the Fume Knight. I think now probably is a good time to say this. The Bone Fist is awesome. The sheer amount of hits you can get in is amazing, and the damage from each is certainly nothing to sniff at. Easily the best fist weapon in the game, and one you should for sure rush to get. Hell, maybe best fist weapon in the series. Because of the frequent heals I needed to do due to getting too excited with attacks, Fume Knight kept slamming his sword into the ground and never actually went to phase 2. I found it quite funny, but he didn't seem to have a sense of humour. Okay, let's get Sir Alon done. This was actually one of the trickiest fights of the cycle. The main reason being that with many other bosses, they had bigger windows for me to land multiple hits quickly to make up for the lower damage per hit. With Alon though, he often jumps away when I hit him a couple times. This meant that this fight dragged out a lot longer than it needed to, simply because I couldn't get much damage in each time I had an opportunity to do so. I also got smacked hard by his attacks. After a pretty long drawn out brawl, the lone boss remaining in this cycle is defeated. With all the bosses sorted out, I go to Gilligan to buy a whip for the next cycle. After sorting myself out with some new fashion, we go to dive right in. Let's get this run finished. Hey, whips here make a pretty satisfying sound. Our first stop is actually the crow's nest. Over the cycles, I've accumulated a few petrified somethings, which can be traded for a variety of items including the old whip, the highest damage whip in the game. The damage difference is kinda wild, and now we have power stance whips right from the jump. The old whip does have a pretty big weakness though. The durability on it is absolutely terrible. You can actually see the bar go down loads with every attack. But over 500 damage from two weapons that aren't even upgraded is pretty good. Although what's happened to my right hand whip? Why is it bent like that? Just DS2 things, I suppose. After whipping Ian into shape, we take on the old Whippin' Slayer with our drags. The range from these whips is really useful to have and makes a nice change compared to the previous two weapon types. On top of that, compared to the DS1 and DS3 whips, the damage is actually very good, especially when landing the heavy power stance attack. It didn't take too many hits to bring him down. I'm liking this so far. After nailing this jump perfectly the first time with no issues, I head to take on the Dragon Rider. Given the damage, I really get the feeling these whips would kinda slap if this was normal new game. Down he goes. We now run onto Huntsman's Copse, where we can grab another whip, the classic Notched Whip. The Notched Whip of course comes with a built-in bleed, but bleed is kinda trash in Dark Souls 2 as it just does a flat 200 damage each proc. Hardly even an extra hit in New Game Plus. But regardless, I tested it out on the Flexile Sentry. While I did get a bleed, I took my eye off the ball and the old whip broke during the fight, meaning I had to switch to the normal whip midway through. This greatly decreased our damage, but at least this boss is quite easy. Really gotta keep an eye on that inflexible durability. I think it might be upgrade time. So I went and got the key from Melentia and upgraded the old whip to +2 and the notched whip to +3. Let's test out our new whip against the pursuer, but this time up on this terrace as we haven't killed him up here yet this run. Moving between his attacks was pretty straightforward and the damage is quite tasty. Is Dark Souls 2 the game that finally breaks the tradition of whips being bad? Is my pursuit of good whip weapons over? With their power, this giant doesn't last very long against me, and neither does the mini-boss pursuer in the Lost Bastille. I restore our access to McDull, who max upgrades our notched whip, as well as bringing the old whip to +4 with a bleed infusion. Shortly after this though, I realised I kinda made a terrible mistake. The rune sentinels cannot be bled. Probably should have checked that first, but I really wanted to see if I could make a viable bleed build. I mean, luckily the damage was still good enough to carry us through, but this did ruin my day a little. I took out another pursuer up ahead to get another twinkling, then upgraded the normal whip to maximum and infused both that and the old whip with poison instead. One look at how this Belfry Goggles fight shows that this was the better choice. While poison doing a fixed number of damage instead of a percentage does mean it falls off as we get further into new game cycles, the speed with which poison works and can subsequently be procced again more than makes up for it. Before long, the Belfry boys start gargling and frothing at the mouth from the repeated infections. This time, I free strayed from his stone prison as we are going to need him later, before killing one last pursuer for the final Twinkling Titanite, at last getting us the max upgraded old whip. Okay, we've gone way too long without fighting an old one for my liking, so it's Lost Sinner time. On this go, I did take out the Pyromancers as soon as they joined. I didn't suspect they'd have such low health, it only took 2 light power stance attacks to take him out. With them gone, it was a simple matter of poisoning the Lost Sinner, who soon died from gum disease. Guess they should have for lost more. Speaking of disease, how about another trip to this gaggle of rats? Fun fact, the actual boss rat can be poisoned. This probably won't be that useful given how easy this boss is anyway, but good to know I guess. I joined the Rat Covenant now to get the Crest of the Rat to boost poison on weapons even higher. As you can see, it's a nice little boost, meaning we can proc poison much faster. Let's test this out on a very poison resistant boss. The Rotten should do. With this setup, it took a total of 8 whip hits to poison him, which I'm pretty happy with. He does have quite massive health at this stage, but every bit of damage helps. With enough successive poison procs, the Rotten keeps rotting away until he eventually dies. Consequently, the giants below the gulch were the easiest here of any of the runs thanks to the rapid poisoning setup. I was still curious if bleed could do something though, so I went to grab something that'd be useful for it by beating the executioner's chariot. The poison was so strong here that the horse quickly melted down into glue. Beyond him, we can join the Brotherhood of Blood Covenant. The Crest of Blood ring boosts the bleed of weapons that have it, so maybe we can use this to actually try bleeding stuff. But there's a bit more setup for that first. I take out Rowena, annihilate the completely poison immune skeleton lords in humorous fashion, and then tickle the covetous demon's tummy with our whips. No poison of course, but we did get a bleed or two in there. Shh, please don't tell Babs, I'm in real trouble here, seriously, don't tell. Up ahead, we can speak to Gilligan again, and this time buy a second normal whip. I get this upgraded to max and infused with bleed. With this, the notched whip and the Crest of Blood, we can get some fairly consistent bleeds on Mitha, but it's still just 200 damage each time, so not really much of a difference maker. I wouldn't really Mitha this status if they removed it from the game. Plus, this already becomes useless with our next boss, the Bleed Immune Smelter Demon. Lucky, he is super weak to poison though. Although I will never understand why, because if any boss looks like it should be immune to poison, it's definitely him. And hey, guess what? I messed up with the old whip again, and it's broken. I'm starting to lose my patience a bit with how bad the durability is on this thing. Regardless, we unseat this fiery demonarch shortly after. Next, Oliver the Collector collects a series of infections from my poisoned whips, and the old Iron King gets a bad bout of diarrhea from them, which causes him to run for the lavatory. Nazca of course can't be poisoned, but we can try bleed again just to further confirm how terrible it is. I can get poisoned by her of course though. Good thing I was able to munch that divine blessing. This was the longest Nazca fight of the run, but with enough whips we escort her off this mortal coil. Thankfully, the Royal Rat Authority went much better than last time. I did get toxic, but I was able to Estus through it and take out the last rat. Thank God this is the last we're going to see of this boss for a long while. Freya popped up to say hi again, and did quite a lot of damage actually. The whips did perform amazing for Congregation though. The wide sweeps of the Power Stance Heavy were really good for taking out loads of them at once, sending out a strong gust of wind with each attack. Although Freya can't be poisoned, she can be bled, and that 200 bleed damage is certainly something. But hey, at least the Power Stance Heavy can take out the spiders pretty easily. Compared to the other Old One bosses, she's pretty Freya-all, so taking her down is a fairly speedy process. I then did my first level up in ages, getting Dex to 50 and adding another point to Endurance. With the Old Ones dead, it was time to head to Dranglake Castle again, where I took great joy in poisoning this Red Phantom. For some reason, I had convinced myself that the Dragon Riders couldn't be poisoned, but yeah, that's clearly not the case. There's not much to say about this fight, but it is pretty heartwarming how these boys always come to each other's aid. I guess they must be each other's ride or die. Of all bosses so far, Looking Glass Knight actually caused me some issues. The damage at this point is pretty wild. I'm literally chugging Estus here, but yet his jump attack still wiped me out. This ended up being by far the longest fight of the cycle to date. Damage was low, and even though he can be poisoned, his resistance is quite high. On top of that, I really had to make sure I was miles away from him before healing, because I was so terrified of getting killed randomly again. Also, those summons? Yeah, they can't be poisoned at all, which doesn't help matters. Sometimes, even if I'm on nearly the other side of the arena, LGK can sprint across and hit me when I heal. Finally, after 7 minutes of fighting, the poison sends this boss's spirit off to the glastral plane. At this point, I couldn't quite bring myself to kill all of the Shrine of Amana enemies, and somehow I actually just managed to run through them all. That was my first try as well. Now, it's time for one of the most important bosses of the cycle, the Demon of Song. Not because it's a particularly difficult fight, of course, no. This frog honestly ribbit off more than it could chew when it challenged me. The reason it's important is because of its boss soul. Using its boss soul, we can get the spotted whip. This whip already starts with the poison status effect, but when we upgrade it to max and infuse it with poison, the poison buildup goes through the roof. But we can even go one step further. Because I have another Demon of Song soul from the last cycle, we can get another spotted whip, upgrade and poison infuse that to give us one of the strongest poison builds in the game. Using just 2 light power stance attacks is enough to poison up Lycia. 4 hits total to proc it, which is kinda wild. Okay, but that's an NPC. How will it do against a boss with high poison resistance like Velstad? Well, it's once again just 2 light power stance attacks. 4 hits to poison a supposedly very poison resistant boss. That is kinda wild. If you did this in New Game and got a second spotted whip via a bonfire ascetic, you would legit melt most of the game. After not that long, our Velstatus effect finishes off the boss. I quickly switched over to bleed for Vendrick, which given his insane health here, barely made a difference. At no point did we see any yellow damage on the health bar. At least the fight was pretty straightforward. I turned myself into a vending machine, Morty. I'm Vendrick! The gatekeeper then tries to keep us out of Aldia's keep, but we keep hitting him so we can keep going. Keep. The sky is blue, the sun will rise, and Ian will keep goddamn flying away instead of letting me hit him. These are the guarantees in life. At least the poison that we can easily inflict keeps ticking his health down while he's in the air. I really wanted the death animation of him dying in the air, but the poison wore off just before it killed him. God damn it, Ian, always spoiling my fun. Die! After poisoning out Gaia the Dragon Champion, I then spent 5 minutes buried in the Ancient Dragon's toe flaps. At last, this boss is defeated for the last time. Speaking of hugging feet, Giant Lord is also a boss. At least he's got a lot less health than Vendrick or Ancient Dragon. So, my strategy now is to kill every remaining boss that can be poisoned, saving those immune to poison for last. Luckily, the entire final boss gauntlet can be poisoned. Poison works really well for the Throne duo, and those pesky periods where you can't really hit either of them. 4 whip hits is again enough to get the poison, and once the defender gets rid of his shield, the end of his life comes shortly after. The Chandra was a little bit more resistant to poison, so it took a few more hits to get it in, but other than that, it was just a waiting game. Hardly a concise fight with how much health she has, but still fine. Last up there's Aldia, who I definitely didn't die to by getting too greedy with my hits. Okay, so I was kind of curious here. Aldia apparently can be poisoned, but has one of the highest poison resistances in the whole game, so I'm curious how many hits it will take. 9. 9 hits, and that was with a big break in between while he did his giant fireball attack. So at least we can actually keep his health depleting while his fire shield is up. Still probably better ways of passing the time than fighting him though. I walk away from the throne once again to face the final challenges of the run. First up, we head to Elium Lois, the only DLC where all 3 bosses can be poisoned. Similar to Aldia, Arva has one of the highest poison resistances in the game. This took about 8 hits to poison him, which is insanely fast for how long it's taken me to do that in other runs. Something about whipping a tiger makes me feel like I'm working in a circus. After a few minutes, we give this frosty kitty a cool whip to pull out the win. Can we just take a moment to give a massive middle finger to this area here? Screw the little hedgehogs especially. They even decided to add red phantom versions of them in New Game Plus Plus, because why wouldn't they? That's a real difficulty spike. They also add a red phantom rampart golem at the end of the frigid outskirts, although this time he weirdly didn't notice me, which was odd, but certainly not unwelcome. As for our twin kitty friends at the end of the area, I knew for certain there's no way I'd kill Lud before Zalin got involved. The best I could do was poison Lud and remove the amount of time I'd have to go for attacks during the part where they were both active. All I'll say is that it's a good thing I stocked up on Elizabeth mushrooms and repair powders on my travels. With the poison taking out Lud, I was left with another similar problem. There was no way I'd be able to take out Zalin before he did the regen buff. But, at the very least, the poison could counteract how much health Zalin regenerated during this period. Once this ended, one final poison on Zalin was all it took to Tigern me the victory. Back in Elium Lois, I taught Lemon to respect the whippy break, and then freed all the knights again. For the Ivory King fight, the fact the knights can be poisoned is a big boon for us. In fact, it was actually too big a boon because we kinda killed the knights too quickly. The king actually joined the fight before the last portal closed, and a pyro-using enemy knight arrived with the king. We just managed to kill the knight before the king aggroed on me, but my poor knight buddy died in the process. I feel bad because his death was due to my error. I must avenge him. This was actually the first time this run where the Ivory King had a proper sesh with his lightsaber, and yeah, that hurts. He also has high poison resistance, so not even sure how much this helped. But eventually, after enough dodging and whipping, we send him back into his eye vortex. Okay, next DLC. I grabbed the heavy iron key from the pit and somehow just about managed to warp away before I got fireballed. The Iron King DLC now adds this Black Phantom who not only has a whip but also throws poison knives. Am I a joke to you? Also, here's a neat thing I learnt. If Quicksword Rachel buffs her sword with fire and hits one of these braziers, it spews out fire which you can trick her to standing in. The damage from this plus the poison helps to quickly kill her. What a cool little detail. Anyway, the second to last boss we can poison is the Blue Smelter Demon, who we can poison in just 2 attacks. Due to Smelter's susceptibility to our stinky status, survival was a solid strategy. If I could just not die before the poison finishes him off, then I would be okay. Each attack after he buffs his sword does a disgusting amount of damage, clearing off about 80% of my health in a single swing. Things got dicey towards the end, but luckily I just about held on, and at last he falls too. For the final poisonable boss, we have to go into the last DLC, the Sunken Crown. Just want to mention, yes, I know about the Sanctum Gauntlets, no, I don't want to farm them. L'Equipe de Gank, as they call them in France, stand before us. Given that this boss is about 80% running away, getting them poisoned before you start said running is a good idea. Despite a couple of times where they caught me and the Havel guy's annoying habit of healing, this was fairly smooth. The Grave Robber dies first, followed by the Ancient Soldier. I then poisoned up the Old Explorer, who asked me, "Is there an antidote for this?" to which I replied no. Although all the poisonable bosses are dead, the poison whips still have some good value in clearing out the enemies in the dark chasms with ease. This was especially useful for this double hammers guy, who always seems to cause me trouble. I switched to a normal whip and old whip now for the remaining bosses. Given Dark Lurker takes half damage from physical attacks, I used Bright Bugs and Gold Pine Resin, but even then the damage seemed low as hell. This was easily the hardest Dark Lurker fight of the run. I'm not sure why, but he and his clone seemed to coordinate really hard this time to prevent me from ever having a good window to attack. There were some really close calls also, as their damage was absolutely insane. Finally, after nearly 8 minutes, we got the win, even though I feel it was a bit of a flirk victory. Okay, so just the Poison Immune DLC bosses remain, which obviously include Ilana. The Power Stance Heavy actually did really good damage with a Bright Bud active. 750 is nothing to sneeze at. Also useful was that one of these was enough to take out the skeletons. I have to say, I've been pretty lucky in the Ilana fights this run for once. She never summoned Velstad at all until right at the end of this fight, and I was able to finish her before she completed the summon. Finally, this squalidiotic fight is behind me. Comparatively, Sim was not so bad for once. He actually gave me a lot more time fighting him on the ground, and as a result, this was one of the shortest Sin fights I've ever had. Amazing how a boss fight can be made better by the boss being in a position where you can actually hit them. At the end, he kinda just gave up and stood still as I whipped him to death. Good, I've got more pressing matters to attend to. Like Fume Knight. Damage against him was a bit lower than against the Sunken Crown bosses, but you know what, actually not that bad. This time though, we did end up with him going to phase 2 at the intended time in his health bar. As a result, the fight did take longer than before just because getting hit by any of these attacks does, some pretty big numbers. So, caution was very much needed on my part. But after 5 minutes of whipping this boss in the ass as much as humanly possible, he goes down. Only one boss remains. Sir Alon is that boss. I feel like I've had several runs where he ends up being the final challenge, but he's the best boss in the game, so I have no issues with it. No gimmicks, no nonsense, just an honourable samurai fighting some guy in a fetish outfit with 2 whips. Good times had by everyone involved. We dodged and whipped, dodged and whipped, dodged and whipped, etc. until finally I said, "It's dangerous to go alone, take this," and promptly whipped him in the face again. You know, I think we can safely say that Dark Souls 2 has the best whips in the series. Good job, Dark Souls 2, you redeemed this awful weapon class. Anyway, to finish off the run, I returned to Shrine of Amana to grab the King's Crown and then restored the power to them, leaving just one last bit of unfinished business to take care of. I returned to Majula, where I aggroed every single NPC that was hanging around, lured them all together, and then hit them with my poisoned whips until they all died. After stealing all their stuff off their dead bodies, I jumped off a cliff into the water while holding 1 million souls. I've been JK Leeds, see ya, and have a good one.